Most people only see the roaring Harleys, the heavy leather jackets, and the patches that make folks quickly cross the street. But there's an unwritten code in the biker world that outsiders never understand. A code about standing up for the weak, a silent vow that if darkness touches someone who can't protect themselves, they'll be the first ones to step forward. On a freezing November night, along Route 66, a tiny waitress was trembling as she was about to encounter that unwritten code in a way she never expected. For 3 weeks, she had been stalked step by step by a man. The police told her not enough evidence. Her boss told her stop imagining things. But when the little girl whispered to a huge Hell's Angel biker sitting in booth number 6, just 4 trembling words, "Sir, he's following me," he didn't say a thing. He simply put down his fork and stood up. What happened next will make you believe in humanity, in nameless kindness, and it will completely change the way you see these men in leather jackets. Before we dive into that unbelievable story, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your country, state, or city in the comments. I really want to know how far the message about protecting those who can't protect themselves is spreading. Are you from a small town like Flagstaff or a big city where people usually pass each other without a glance? Hit that subscribe button, because this is where we tell true stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, stories that challenge every stereotype about heroes, justice, and kindness. This is the story of Maya Cole and one night on Route 66 that changed everything. If you've ever had a job that made you feel invisible, where people look through you instead of at you, then you'll understand Maya Holland, a 12-year-old waitress at a little roadside diner hunched over wiping the last table in the corner, her tiny hands exhausted from a shift that stretched from late afternoon until almost midnight. Her messy black hair half covered her face, and her breath came out in thin clouds in the cold seeping through the door cracks. Maya shouldn't have been there at that hour. Anyone could see that. A kid should have been asleep under a thin blanket in an East Flagstaff motel room, not standing under flickering neon lights with the wind howling outside like a mournful cry. But Maya had no choice. Her mom was back on the creaky bed at home, chronic lung disease making it hard to breathe, sometimes unable to even sit up on her own. Medicine was expensive, utility bills kept coming, and her little brother was only 7, too young to understand why his big sister was getting thinner by the day. So Maya worked. She wiped tables, took orders, refilled coffee pots, cleared dishes, her little feet running back and forth across the cold tile floor. She was so small the uniform hung off her like it was on a hanger, but Maya always smiled, always said thank you, always bowed politely. That smile was exactly like the smile of an adult forced to act strong while falling apart inside. Her loneliness was as thick as the widows in the old story, a small soul living in a space too big, too cold, too easy for someone to disappear without anyone noticing. Outside, the wind howled long and low, slipping through the cracks, rattling the windows, making the neon sign flicker like it was about to die. Flagstaff this time of year isn't just cold, it's gloomy, harsh, and silent. The kind of silence that makes your heart shrink. Maya tried to act tough because there was no one else to lean on, but deep in her tiny chest, her heart was racing so hard it made her breathing shake. She knew tonight wasn't just cold, not just tired, not just long. It was terrifying. Because through the frosted glass, out in the empty parking lot where the darkness was thick as ink swallowing the neon light spilling onto the pavement, that gray sedan was there again. Headlights off, but Maya knew its shape. She knew where it liked to park. She knew the chill that ran down her spine whenever it slowly started up and followed her to the bus stop. And tonight, just like the 5 nights before, Maya felt it as clearly as an invisible hand on her shoulder. He was there again. He appeared at 8:17 p.m., like clockwork every night, walking through the door without hurry, without noise, nothing like any customer Maya had ever seen. His gray coat wasn't just faded, it was almost colorless, as if wind, dust, and long roads had drained every bit of life from the fabric until only a lifeless shell remained. The collar was turned up, hiding half his face, but his eyes couldn't be hidden, 2 black, cold, bottomless pits. The moment Maya looked up, his eyes were already on her, as if he hadn't come to order food but only to watch her. Every movement, every breath, every time she bent down to wipe a spill. He sat for hours without touching his spoon, without drinking his coffee, without looking at the menu, strange enough that he seemed like he didn't belong in this world, or any world with living people. He just sat there under the flashing red and blue light, his bony hands placed in front of him, index finger lightly tapping the cup rim in a rhythm that sent chills down the spine. Every tap made Maya flinch, a tiny sound like a water drop, but carrying an invisible threat she couldn't name. Then the spoon. He didn't stir his coffee or lift it to drink. He just held it between two fingers and turned it very slowly. Every time the metal caught the neon light, Maya felt it sweep a cold circle across her skin. Worse was his breathing, long, slow, even, cold like the breath rising from the ground when winter starts covering the pine forests. That breath drifted lightly over his coffee cup without warming it at all. It only made the air around booth 3 thick like frost. If it had been just one night, Maya wouldn't have been this scared, but this was night 19. And every night, he sat a little closer. First night booth 7, then booth 5, then booth 4. At first Maya thought it was coincidence, but when he moved to booth 3, less than an arm's length from the counter, she knew it wasn't. Every time he inched closer, like a predator slowly closing the gap with its prey, Maya felt an invisible steel ring tighten around her chest. He didn't need to do anything, didn't need to walk over. Those eyes were enough to freeze her solid. No one believed Maya. She tried telling the manager, but he just shrugged. He's only looking. You kids imagine too much. An older regular she trusted just smiled indulgently. Men do that sometimes, they stare a little long. The Flagstaff police wouldn't even file a report because there was no direct threat. Just like the widow in the old story. She spoke up, she asked for help, but everyone treated her fear like it was too small to matter. So Maya curled in on herself, like a baby bird folding its wings before a storm. Every time she left the diner, the cold outside wasn't the night's cold. It was the cold from the gray sedan parked motionless under the streetlight. The car was always in the exact same spot, separate from the others, as if it didn't want to be mistaken for any vehicle owned by a normal person. Windows blacked out, nothing visible inside. Headlights completely off, no blinking, no invitation, just lying there crouched like a beast, flattened to the ground waiting for the right moment to pounce. Maya knew the sound of its engine. The moment she appeared, the engine would shiver slightly and start idling low like a muffled growl, and even though she couldn't see the man's face, she could feel his eyes piercing through the dark glass, locked on her like talons on a tiny mouse. The 12-year-old had to walk stretched to the bus stop, a dark, empty, windy road, but it wasn't the weather making her shake. It was the feeling she was never walking alone, even when no one was around. Tonight, as the neon sign outside kept flickering like a heart about to stop, Maya stood behind the counter clutching the rag so hard her knuckles went white. She felt it as clearly as someone standing right beside her ear, whispering with icy breath. He's watching. Night after night, 3 weeks long as a sunless winter, Maya lived with the feeling of an invisible shadow chasing her everywhere, like she was just a tiny flickering light, trembling in the middle of the desert, while he was a poisonous wind shifting direction at will, and never stopping. First day he just watched from afar. Third day he moved to booth 5. Fifth day he arrived an hour early. Eighth day he sat right at the counter. 15th day he was there the moment Maya started her shift, still holding the spoon in that weird way, eyes fixed on no one but her. His movements booth to booth, hour to hour, were exactly like the winds on the Flagstaff Plateau. First a gentle breeze, then a strong gust, then a twisting storm changing direction, as if guided by an invisible hand. Maya could feel clearly that he wasn't just watching. He was encircling her. Every time she turned around he was a little closer, like a hunter quietly shortening the distance to prey he believed he owned. No one else saw it. Only Maya felt every inch he advanced, every unblinking stare, every breath that drifted over his coffee but never warmed it, every tiny movement signaling he was calculating. Her smallness made him more confident. His closing in made Maya feel even smaller. It was the perfect cycle of terror. Maya tried everything to act normal. She smiled at customers, said thank you, poured coffee, wiped tables, but her shoulders were always hunched, as if afraid someone would touch her back from behind. Just one twist of the spoon he held, and her heart pounded like war drums. Every time the wind whistled through the door crack, Maya thought he was standing right behind her. For 3 weeks, the only thing he never changed was the way he looked at her. He looked at her like she wasn't a person but a target. No expression. Not the eyes of someone here to eat dinner or drink coffee. Not the look of a regular. It was the look of something unnatural, something not of the human world. That look made Maya feel trapped in an invisible net tightening day by day. But all of that was still not as terrifying as the walk from the diner to the bus stop. That was where the real horror began. Maya finished at 10:40. Just changing shoes and putting on her coat made her scared, because the moment she stepped through that light glass door, darkness instantly swallowed her, and Route 66 was left with only the wind whipping long cries of mourning. She walked fast, but her steps seemed to freeze every time she felt his eyes, even though she couldn't see them, stabbing into the back of her neck. She crossed the parking lot breathing hard, trying not to look right, where the gray sedan lay under the sickly yellow streetlight, motionless like a predator pressed flat to the ground. But not looking didn't help, because she could hear it. It was a sound only someone stalked for 3 weeks could recognize, the engine turning over very softly, very slowly, very deliberately, not the quick start of someone about to drive away, not the cough of a cold engine. It was intentional, like he wanted Maya to know he was waiting, and that he had seen her. Every night it was the same. The moment Maya appeared, the engine shivered and idled, the dashboard lights casting a faint greenish glow behind the dark glass. Then the car didn't move. Just idled, waited. Maya walked faster, but the feeling of being hunted followed her like a shadow. The wind seemed strong but couldn't blow away the fear inside her. It only made the engine sound in the parking lot clearer, longer, blending with the wind into a chilling song composed just for the little girl. The distance to the bus stop was little more than 100 steps, but to Maya it was as long as a tunnel in a nightmare, dark, cold, and always something lurking at the end waiting for her to get close. 3 weeks passed, wearing her spirit down in a way Maya didn't know how to describe, only feeling something quietly gnawing inside her like a starving animal that never slept, growing a little bigger, a little heavier each night, until her tiny shoulders always felt crushed by an invisible weight. Sleep, already fragile as frost on a winter window, had almost vanished. When night came, she didn't dare close her eyes because every time she drifted off she was dragged down into nameless nightmares. In her dreams, Maya saw the gray sedan at the top of the hill, headlights blinking like a predator's eyes watching from afar while she ran forever down an empty road. 66, running but her little legs stuck to the ground, every step agonizingly slow, as if the earth wanted to swallow her. Sometimes she dreamed she was inside the Twin Arrows diner, and the man in gray was standing right behind her, his cold breath on her neck like smoke from an old stove, wanting to scream but no sound came out. Every time she woke up her shirt was soaked in sweat, heart pounding so hard it hurt, and in the darkness the sound of wind battering the wooden walls made her feel he was standing right outside the window, waiting for one more breath before bursting in. Her mom asked many times, each morning sitting up coughing with dry, weak coughs that sounded like they drained her very last breath. Eyes worried as she looked at Maya. "Are you sleeping okay? Are you hiding something from me?" But Maya just shook her head and forced a stiff, lonely smile, because she knew if she told the truth, her mom would worry herself sicker. And it was just the two of them, a sick mother and a 12-year-old working the night shift. Maya couldn't let her mom know the fear that was crushing her heart. Some nights her mom woke up coughing violently. Maya ran to help her sit up, rubbed her back, made warm water. Then when she went back to her own room, her legs shook so badly she had to hold the wall to stay upright. But Maya stayed silent, swallowed it all, like the widow in the original story, the woman who day after day curled up by the fireplace knowing that if even one crack opened the blizzard would rush in and take everything. Maya curled up too, but instead of a fireplace she pressed herself against the old wooden wall of the mobile home, trying to believe that if she stayed quiet, if she stayed small, he wouldn't see her anymore. But he always saw her. At the diner, Maya gathered all her courage to tell the manager. She stood in front of him, clutching her apron so hard, her fingers went white trying to keep her voice steady. "Uncle Tom, I think someone is following me." He looked up, frowned like Maya was interrupting his inventory count, even though he was just counting napkins. "Who?" "The man in the gray coat. He comes every night, stares at me, and his car is always at the bus stop." Tom gave a snort of laughter. "Maya, you watch too many movies. He pays his bill, doesn't do anything, doesn't cause trouble. Men look, it's normal. Don't make stuff up." Maya stood there a long time hoping he'd say something more, hoping for a little concern, a flicker of worry, but he just waved her off like a fly. That day Maya had to go to the back kitchen for a while to calm down because her eyes stung and her throat felt squeezed. At the police station, Maya used every bit of courage she had to tell them. But when she explained, the officer just frowned and asked the usual questions. "Did he threaten you? Did he touch you? When she shook her head, he ended with the sentence that had destroyed all her hope for 3 weeks. Then there's not enough to file a report. Have someone walk you home at night. But who? It was just Maya and her mom, and the Twin Arrows diner lit up until late. After the police brushed her off, Maya's fear was no longer little waves. It was a sheet of ice covering her whole life. She realized the most terrifying thing wasn't the man in gray, but the feeling of being left alone in the storm. The smaller she felt, the bigger the darkness around her grew. She shrank inside the diner, walking so lightly, no one heard her slippers, trying to do everything fast so the night shift would end sooner. But every time the door opened and the bell jingled, Maya jumped, her heart dropping to the cold tile floor. Regulars sometimes asked, "You okay, honey? You look pale." Maya just bowed her head and smiled, because she didn't want pity, didn't want anyone thinking she was too sensitive or paranoid, the way people thought about the widow in the original story. But inside Maya, the fear burned like an underground fire that never went out. Every night after her shift, the 60 steps from the diner to the bus stop were like crossing a desert. Step 10, she heard the wind. Step 20, she felt eyes behind her. Step 40, the engine started, low and steady, exactly like a beast growling that the hunt had begun. Step 60, the streetlight reflected off the gray hood, and Maya wanted to cry. She was only 12, but her hands shook like an adult who had endured too much. Every time his car revved lightly, Maya felt a new cold crack open inside her. 3 weeks, he never missed a night. Not one night did Maya go home without seeing the gray sedan. Not one night did he not look at her with eyes empty as the bottom of a well. Not one night did Maya not feel she was walking the thin line between living and being swallowed whole. Sometimes Maya even heard the engine in her head at school. She whipped around when someone dropped a pen, jumped when a boy slammed a door, sat in class staring out at the playground afraid the gray coat would appear behind a tree. Maya's fear was no longer only in the diner, the bus stop or the sedan. It had spread everywhere she went like a second shadow that never left. And all that time, no one saw Maya was almost broken. Tom was busy with the register. The police were busy with paperwork. Customers came and went. And her mom was sick, too short of breath to notice her daughter was slowly being swallowed by the storm. That night, the air inside the Twin Arrows diner was thick, as if someone had sealed every window so not a single breeze could escape. Outside, Route 66 was darker than usual, the only streetlight flickering constantly, casting broken streaks of light on the metal dumpsters behind the kitchen, as if the darkness was slowly eating the last scraps of light. Inside the diner, it was so quiet Maya could hear her own shoes on the cold tile. Only 2 customers left, an elderly couple eating slowly in the corner, and Daniel, the man in gray, the one Maya had been terrified of for 3 weeks. But tonight he was different. From the first minute Maya felt something wrong. Daniel wasn't sitting still like usual. He kept switching seats from booth 5 to booth 4, then to booth 3, then back to booth 5, like he was calculating the distance between him and Maya, testing which spot gave the best view, which allowed the fastest approach. His movements weren't fast or rushed, they were slow in a way that made your skin crawl, deliberate, measured, like a wolf circling livestock, picking the weakest one. The way he kept moving made Maya's stomach knot up. Every time he switched, his eyes never left her for a second. Not a curious look, not a lustful stare. It was the look of a man who had decided something in his head, something irreversible, something that made Maya feel like she was now only the final target of a sick plan. When he finally sat down right at the counter, only an arm's length from Maya, her heart pounded so hard she thought it would burst out of her chest. Maya tried to keep her hands steady while pouring coffee, but hot drops spilled outside the cup because her whole body was shaking. She tried not to look, but his eyes bored into her face, slow, cold, stretching every second like torture. Daniel said nothing, didn't blink. He just watched her like he was studying how she would react, like he was waiting for the moment to decide whether to stand up. Then Maya heard the sound that had haunted her for 3 weeks, his car engine starting slowly outside the lot, not the sound of a car about to leave, but a low, steady rumble, like the engine turning over just to tell the prey the hunt had officially begun. The gray sedan was parked closer to the door than ever before, so close the neon light reflected off the windshield in a thin red streak like blood. Headlights off, but Maya knew he had left the engine running, as if waiting for her to step outside so the car could slowly follow. Maya's stomach twisted painfully. Her hands were ice cold even though the heater was on. For the first time in 3 weeks, Maya truly believed she wouldn't make it home tonight. She glanced out the window. The wind was blowing so hard dust swirled in long black spirals under the yellow light. The whole space felt smaller, suffocating, as if the little diner no longer had room for the fear exploding inside her. Maya tried to swallow, but her throat was dry as paper. She thought about running to the break room to calm down, but the moment she turned, Daniel shifted his shoulder in her direction, as if he could read every thought, as if he wanted her to know he could stand up any second. 1 second, that was all it would take for Maya to not be able to run. A freezing stab shot through her stomach. Her knees went weak. Maya put her hand on the counter to steady herself because her legs were shaking too hard to stand. She wanted to scream for someone to hear, but the elderly couple had already left, the glass door clicking shut behind them like a coffin lid. Now it was just Maya and Daniel in the wide diner, and the deadly silence. Maya opened her mouth to call for Tom, the manager, but he was in the storage room with the door closed, the old radio blaring country music, so loud he couldn't hear anything outside. The wind outside howled like a final warning, but no one heard it except Maya. She looked down at her hands, tiny hands shaking violently, nails digging into the rag so hard it took several seconds to pry them loose. In that moment she felt like a small oil lamp in a storm. Her weak light only needed one strong gust to go out. And tonight, the storm was right at the door. Daniel tilted his head. The first time all night he opened his mouth, and a pale smile appeared on his lips that made Maya's whole body go ice cold. Night shift. Pretty empty, huh? His voice was hoarse, low, dragging out each word on purpose, both a reminder and a threat. Maya took an instinctive step back, but he leaned forward, elbow on the counter, closing the distance even more. No more booth 3. No more booth 4. No more booth 7. Tonight he was right next to her. His breath mixed with the smell of coffee and grease, creating something that made Maya want to throw up. She tried to breathe slowly but couldn't. Her heart beat like a trapped bird slamming against its cage, trying to break free. And right then, when Maya was on the verge of crying from total despair, the door suddenly let out a soft ding, very light, but enough for Daniel to flinch and turn his head. Maya turned too, and she saw the man in leather from booth 6 standing up. His shadow fell across the neon-streaked floor, so massive it swallowed the flickering red and blue light around the diner. Colbert Maddox was a name nobody at Twin Arrows Diner knew, but anyone who had lived along Route 66 for more than 2 rainy seasons understood one thing. A man wearing a Hells Angels Mesa chapter cut never stands up for no reason. And tonight, Cole stood up for a very clear reason. The terrified eyes of the little waitress shaking in front of the creep. He'd been in Flagstaff almost a week, making no noise, talking to no one except the staff when he ordered, just sitting in booth 6 quietly eating his patty melt and drinking black coffee strong enough for men who live on the road. Maya had noticed him from day one. You couldn't miss him because his bulk blocked half the window light. But not once had she thought she could ever approach him. He was huge, silent, and his cut was covered in patches a good kid wouldn't dare stare at too long. A winged skull, Mesa chapter. The number 81 people whispered about. Bikers like that made grown-ups step back, let alone a kid like Maya. But tonight, Cole was the only person who didn't scare her. When Daniel slid right up to the counter, Maya felt her chest being squeezed. She turned left looking for something, anything, to hold on to mentally, and in that exact moment her eyes landed on the back of Cole Maddox's leather cut. He was mid-meal, half a patty melt still on the plate, coffee still steaming in front of him. He wasn't watching Daniel. He wasn't looking at Maya, but his steady silence somehow made Maya feel she wasn't completely alone in the storm anymore. Like the widow opening her door to find 20 bikers standing in the blizzard in the old story, Maya stood at the end of her rope and saw a sliver of hope appear, so thin she hardly dared believe it was real. But it was real, and she had no other choice. Her hands shook so badly the rag on the counter was crumpled into a ball. She knew if she didn't do something right now, tonight would be the last night she walked out of this diner alone. So Maya walked over to booth 6, not because she was brave, because she was desperate. Cole Maddox didn't notice at first. He cut a big bite with his fork, brought it slowly to his mouth, eyes on his plate like nothing in the world could disturb his calm. Only when Maya stood right beside the table and drew a deep shaky breath did Cole slowly raise his head. Maya looked into his eyes, gray-blue, tired like a man who had ridden too many roads and seen too many things no one should see. and for a split second she almost started crying because for the first time in 3 weeks, someone was actually looking at her instead of through her. Holding back the tears, Maya leaned in close and whispered, voice barely louder than a breath, "Sir, he won't stop following me." The words came out like a sob that had been trapped for days, and they stopped Cole Maddox's entire world. He didn't ask who. He didn't ask, "Are you sure?" He didn't give the fake comforting words adults usually give kids. He just looked at Maya for 1 second, one single second, and in that look Maya saw something no one had given her in 3 weeks. Recognition. Cole put his fork down, not politely, deliberately, the way a man puts a fork down when he's just made a decision no one can unmake. A decision that ended dinner, ended silence, and maybe ended the gray-coated man's freedom at booth 3. No questions, no doubt, no hesitation. Cole stood up immediately, a huge solid shadow that blocked the light over his table. Maya took 1 step back from the overwhelming presence, not out of fear, but because it felt like someone had just stepped between her and the darkness trying to swallow her whole. From the counter, Daniel saw Cole move, and for the first time in 3 weeks of hunting Maya, someone made Daniel stop smiling. He turned his head, eyes narrowing, the neon light catching his pupils in a thin red streak that made him look like a cornered animal. Cole walked down the narrow aisle of the diner like a moving block of stone, every bootfall hitting the old tile hard enough to send a low vibration through the air, subtle, but enough for Daniel to jerk his head and follow the motion. Maya stood frozen, tiny hands clasped together, heart clenched as Cole's massive shadow slowly blocked her view. Cole didn't look back at her once. He didn't need to. The moment Maya whispered, "Sir, he won't stop following me," Cole's entire world had shifted into a mode he thought he'd left behind years ago in the dust and explosions of Afghanistan. The mode of a man who knows a predator is hunting a child, and that predator has to be stopped. Cole stopped beside booth 3. Daniel didn't stand, didn't back away, but his body jerked slightly backward, an instinct when a man nearly 6'3", broad-shouldered, wearing heavy leather covered in patches, plants himself in front of your table like a wall. Cole said nothing. He sat down. No asking, no checking if the seat was taken. He just pulled the chair out, spun it slightly with one hand, and sat across from Daniel while the red neon carved deep shadows across his face like cuts. Daniel tried a weak smile, but his mouth stiffened, the corners trembling. He blinked fast, as if the neon bothered him. But Maya knew it wasn't the light, it was Cole. Daniel tried to act casual, placing his hands on the table like an innocent man waiting for food, but those hands betrayed him. His index finger tapped the tabletop in quick little jerks, like an insect beating its wings before death. Cole still said nothing. He just looked at Daniel, and that silence, the kind heavy enough to choke you, was more unsettling than any threat. Daniel swallowed hard, the sound loud in the quiet diner. Is something wrong? Cole tilted his head, eyes never leaving Daniel's pale face. 1, 2, 3 slow breaths passed. Then Cole spoke, voice low like stones dropping into a dry well. "Daniel Kerrigan." Daniel froze. His eyes widened a fraction, then narrowed fast, trying to look unshaken, but the tremor in his fingers gave him away. You've got the wrong guy," Daniel managed, voice dry and breathless, like wind trapped in a pipe. Cole didn't move. 3 years ago, Oregon City, incident in a Walmart parking lot. Police investigated, but didn't have enough to hold you. Daniel's throat jerked like someone had yanked a rope around it. Maya, half hidden behind the counter, watched his face go as pale as scraped paint. Cole continued, voice flat and cold. 2 years ago, Albuquerque. A little girl reported being followed from the bus stop to her motel. Description matched you. Car matched you. Daniel opened his mouth to argue, but no sound came out. Cole kept going. Same even tone, every word hitting the table like a hammer. 1 year ago, Gallup. Another incident. A father almost caved your skull in with a baseball bat because he thought you were following his daughter. Daniel half rose, then dropped back down, back pressed hard into the seat, like his legs wouldn't hold him if he tried to stand. He let out a long breath, but it shook, like a man backed into a corner. "Who are you?" Daniel asked, voice high and thin, ready to snap. Cole didn't answer the question. He just tilted his head, gray eyes boring straight through skin and bone to where Daniel's lies were trembling. "I know who you are," Cole said slowly, "and I know why you're here." Daniel swallowed again, lips sticking together from dryness. I'm just sitting here. I haven't done anything wrong." he muttered, clinging to the last scraps of dignity. Cole placed both elbows on the table, not to threaten, but like a soldier resting his hands before delivering the final briefing. You've been scaring Maya for 3 weeks. Daniel flinched like he'd been slapped. The kid, she told you. She told me enough, Cole answered, eyes flickering once like a ripple on deep water. The rest I saw myself. Daniel's hands clenched into fists, but the fists shook. Cole was calm as stone in a storm. You changed seats in here. You started coming earlier every night. You sat closer. You followed her to the bus stop. Your car parked right at the door, engine idling. That's not coincidence. Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Cole went on. I've seen your type. Afghanistan, New Mexico, Nevada, men who hunt the weakest targets. Maya covered her mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. Daniel shrank back farther, spine glued to the seat. You don't know anything about me, he tried. But the words fell flat like a dead leaf. Cole leaned forward slowly, eyes sharp as a blade just pulled from its sheath. I know, he said, each word clear and hard, like hammer blows on wood. Daniel Kerrigan, born in Utah, dropped out at 18, moved states 3 times in the last 3 years, never stays anywhere longer than 6 months. 2 landlords reported you for disturbing behavior, questioned by police 3 times, but never held long. No evidence. 1 gray sedan, temporary plates. Daniel went ghost white, back pressed so hard into the vinyl it squeaked, eyes darting for an exit but crushed again by Cole's stare. You've been following me. Daniel tried to shout, but it came out a wheeze. No, Cole said. I follow people like you. Daniel shook so hard his hand smacked the table edge. Cole's voice stayed terrifyingly even. I've seen men like you scare my little sister, years ago, and I got there too late. Daniel stopped breathing. Maya gripped the stainless steel counter behind the register until her knuckles went white. She didn't understand the whole story, but she felt the raw pain in Cole's voice. Real, old, dangerous. You think I was going to do something to the kid? Daniel blurted in panic. I don't need to guess, Cole replied. I just have to look in your eyes. Daniel turned his face away. Cole spoke softer, but like a cold saw. You know exactly what you're doing, and I know better. Silence dropped over the table. Not normal silence, heavy silence, the kind that makes you afraid to swallow or breathe too loud. Maya felt the whole world squeezed in someone's fist. Daniel shifted his legs like he might bolt, but Cole lifted his gaze just a fraction, and Daniel froze, legs trembling like live wires. Cole never touched him, never threatened out loud, never raised a fist. He just sat there, huge, silent, unblinking. That silence hit Daniel harder than any punch. Daniel's breathing came faster. I'm just sitting here, okay? You're sitting where you don't belong, Cole said, and you know it. Daniel tried to smile, but it twisted like a shaky drawing. You're not the cops. Cole cut him off. No, I'm not the cops, but I'm the one the kid chose. And that's enough. Daniel slumped back, eyes wide with shock, confusion, fear, and rage. She's just a kid. Exactly, Cole said, voice low like smoldering coals. And you've been making a kid too scared to sleep. Daniel opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He glanced toward the glass door, hoping for an escape in the darkness outside. But the Flagstaff night only got thicker, offering no way out. The air around Booth 3 turned solid, like the cold fog right before a blizzard hits. Maya breathed shallow, afraid to make a sound. Booth 3 had become a judgment table, and Cole was the one laying truth bare. Daniel shook. Maya shook. Cole did not. The air at Booth 3 was stretched so tight, one hard breath could shatter everything. But right as that silence reached its heaviest peak, the Twin Arrows diner door gave a soft little ding. Cole didn't turn. Daniel jumped like he'd heard a gunshot. Maya blinked and peered past the counterpost to see who had just walked in. And then, like the scene of 20 bikers appearing at the widow's house, 3 huge figures stepped inside at the same moment. No noise, no rush, no words to anyone. But their presence instantly changed the room. They walked in like they owned the place. No hesitation, no permission needed, but they didn't break the silence either. They were simply there, and that was enough. Enough for the darkness in the diner to shrink back. Enough for Maya to feel the wind outside stop howling. Enough for Daniel to realize every escape door had just been locked. 3 bikers from the silent circle, a crew few people knew by name but no one ever forgot once they met, crossed the threshold. First was Hawk, almost as tall as Cole, long hair tied back, eyes sharp as a hunting bird cutting through fog. Second was Diesel, thick beard framing his jaw, wrists still streaked with garage grease from the shop he'd just left the second he got the call. Last was Bullet, smaller than the other two, but shoulders wide, steps heavy like every boot print stayed in the ground. That man spoke the least, yet people swore one look from him turned most trouble to dust. They didn't say a word, didn't ask anything, didn't glance around to see if the place was busy. They just walked in, shut the door behind them, and moved with slow, rock-solid steps straight toward booth 3, where Cole sat across from Daniel like a judge waiting for the defendant to confess. Daniel looked at the three men who had just walked in, and in that moment, every shred of twisted confidence he'd built over 3 weeks collapsed completely. Fear surged up from his chest like a wave, flooding every breath, every heartbeat, until he had to grip the seat to hide how badly his hands were shaking. Hawk reached the booth first, said nothing, didn't even look at Daniel, just gave Cole the slightest nod, the kind only men who've known each other forever need. Then he slid into an empty booth to Daniel's left, back to the wall, eyes facing in, like a door slamming shut. Diesel circled to the right, pulled out a chair, and sat across from Hawk. Second blockade. Bullet took the booth right behind Daniel, positioned so if Daniel stood, he'd walk straight into a wall of man. No one looked at Maya, no one looked at the manager, no one cared about anything, except the circle they had just formed around Daniel Kerrigan. Daniel looked left, Hawk looked right, Diesel looked behind, Bullet's shadow like a boulder blocking the path. In that moment he understood, he was surrounded, not with guns, not with fists, but with absolute silence. A silence so organized it was louder than any Harley engine outside, louder than the Flagstaff wind tonight, louder than Maya's heart hammering behind the counter. He opened his mouth to protest. I haven't done anything. Cole raised one finger, not a threat, just a simple stop. And Daniel stopped. Not because Cole commanded it, but because Hawk, Diesel and Bullet all looked at him at the exact same second, breathing in perfect unison. The eyes of three men, three bikers in thick leather, arms like steel, quiet but never soft, shut Daniel's mouth like the night swallowing sound. That silence wrapped around him like ice against skin. Minutes ago Daniel had been the wolf stalking prey from the dark. Now he was nothing more than a rabbit surrounded by eagles. The little diner had become an open-air courtroom, where the only spotlight was the biker's eyes on Daniel. Maya stayed half-hidden behind the counter, nails digging into her palms, afraid to move, afraid to breathe loud. Because she understood something Daniel was only now realizing when the silent circle shows up, the man in the middle doesn't walk away. There is no exit. There is no lie big enough to save him. Daniel tried to slide toward the edge of the seat, but the second he moved a few inches, Bullet shifted his shoulder, just enough to say without words, "Stay put." Daniel froze. Cole didn't look at Hawk, didn't look at Diesel, didn't look at Bullet, but their presence meant he didn't have to do anything more than keep staring at Daniel. One look that made Daniel feel every inch of skin, every breath, every lie forming in his head being examined. "You know," Cole said quietly, voice so low Maya strained to hear, "there's no way you're walking out of here tonight, right?" Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing but a ragged breath came out. "You've got 2 legs, Cole continued, perfectly even. But every door in this diner now has one of them." A tiny flick of his eyes toward the 3 bikers, standing exactly where they need to be. Daniel's eyes darted again, service door, front door, the aisle behind him where Bullet sat. Every route was sealed by men. Not metal, not locks. Just 3 silent bikers like stones. That was the moment Daniel truly understood, not when Cole said his name, not when Cole recited his past, but right now when 3 men quietly sat down and closed the circle like pillars dropping from the darkness. Tonight he wasn't getting away. Maya let out a long, trembling breath, because for the first time in 3 weeks safety wasn't some distant dream. It was standing right here in the diner, flesh and blood, leather and silence, a silence so strong even the darkness had to back off. And Daniel Kerrigan, the man who had made a little girl shake every night, finally understood exactly what he never thought he'd feel: fear. Daniel Kerrigan looked like a man who had run out of roads but was still pretending he had choices. "All right," Cole said, voice low even, neither loud nor sharp, but every word dropped like a small stone into still water, sending ripples across the little diner. "Time we talk straight." Daniel tried a weak smile, trying to piece together the last scraps of defiance that had shattered the moment Hawk walked through the door, but his lips trembled visibly, his eyelids twitched, and the hands on the table were clenched so tight the knuckles went white. "I don't have to talk to you people," he stammered. "I'm just a customer. I haven't done anything wrong. I have rights." Cole didn't interrupt by yelling, didn't slam the table, didn't stand up. He just tilted his head, looking at him the way an adult looks at a child clinging to a lie. "You do have rights," Cole said quietly. "You have the right to call the cops, the right to walk out of this diner and pretend the last 3 weeks were coincidence. You have the right to keep telling yourself you're the misunderstood victim. You've got plenty of rights, Daniel. But me and them," he flicked a glance at the 3 bikers, "we've got rights too. The right not to stand by while a 12-year-old girl shakes walking to the bus stop every night because you're tailing her step for step. The right not to let one more person live in fear nobody believes." Daniel swallowed hard. The dry click in his throat was loud enough to hear at the register. Maya stood behind the cash machine clutching the coffee pot like it was the only life raft in a storm, eyes wide, heart pounding so hard she thought it might jump out of her chest. Cole exhaled slowly, like he was holding back a rage that had been smoldering for years, then placed both open palms on the table. "No fists, no threat. You think I came here tonight just to scare you and walk away?" Cole asked, voice still terrifyingly calm. "No, the silent circle doesn't play games. We don't threaten, we offer choices." The word choices rang in Maya's head like a bell. Daniel swallowed again, staring at Cole. What choices?" Cole leaned forward slightly. The invisible space between the 2 men shrank as if the air itself had been sucked out, leaving only confrontation. "2 choices," Cole said. "I'm saying this once. You listen close, not because you deserve it, but because that little girl," he tipped his head toward Maya, "and the ones before her never got any choice at all." Daniel glanced at the counter. Out of the corner of his eye he saw Maya shrink back, huge eyes on a thin, pale face, and for a split second he saw his own cowardice reflected there. He looked away fast. Cole raised one finger. "Choice 1, he said. "Simple. You leave Flagstaff tonight. Not tomorrow morning, not next week. Tonight." Daniel frowned, trying to scrape together some pride. "You can't force me to leave a whole town just because I'm not done." Cole cut in, voice still low but sharp enough to slice the sentence in half, and silence Daniel like someone hit mute. "You leave Flagstaff tonight. You pack your shit, you check out, you hit the road. Don't believe me? Try staying. We don't have to lay a hand on you. We just stand outside the school, the grocery store, wherever you work, wherever you sleep. You go anywhere, we're there, quiet, watching. The whole town will watch. And you know what happens to a man everyone sees but nobody wants near, right? Your life won't have any dark corners left to hide in." Hawk, Diesel, and Bullet stayed silent, but the air around them thickened another layer. Daniel looked past Hawk toward the glass door, actually weighing whether he could bolt to the parking lot, jump in the gray sedan and floor it. But Bullet's eyes behind him hooked his spine like a meat hook. "You leave here," Cole continued. "You never come back to this stretch of road again. No more Twin Arrows Diner, no more Maya, no more that old bus stop. You cut every tie to this town. My brothers will know if you lie. We've got people everywhere. Flagstaff, Winslow, Gallup, Albuquerque. The silent circle isn't just 4 leather cuts around you tonight." Daniel shivered. He'd never imagined the men on those old Harleys had a network spread across the desert, but hearing Cole say it, he suddenly understood it wasn't bragging. It was fact. That was choice 1. Run, cut ties, live the rest of your life as a ghost somewhere else. Cole raised a second finger. "Choice 2, he said. And now his voice dropped slower, deeper, heavier than thunder over the high plateau. "You don't run. You don't become another shadow in another town to do it all again. You stay right here. You face what you've done." Daniel frowned, like he didn't understand. "Face what?" Cole leaned back slightly, right hand slipping inside his cut. For a second Daniel flinched, thinking it was a gun, but what Cole placed on the table was just an old smartphone, screen scratched to hell. He set it between them. "2 choices, Cole repeated. 1, you disappear from Flagstaff tonight. 2, you stay right here, right now, make a video call, and face the 2 women you made live the same 3 weeks Maya just lived. You look them in the eye, you listen to them tell you what you did. You admit it, you apologize, and you start fixing it." The word women made Maya flinch in her head. Daniel's nightmare had only just started here, but apparently he'd been someone else's nightmare, long before he ever walked into Twin Arrows. Daniel let out a twisted laugh. No humor, just panic. "You're insane," he said. "You want me to confess on camera? You want evidence to lock me up? You want to play hero? I'll call the cops. Perfect." Cole shot back instantly, cutting him off so fast. Daniel choked on the rest. "Call them. Right now. I'll hand you the phone. You can tell them. I'm Daniel Kerrigan. I've been stalking a 12-year-old girl for 3 weeks, parking at her bus stop, following her bus real slow. Right now I'm at Twin Arrows Diner with 4 bikers, who'll gladly be witnesses. Guess whose side they'll be on?" Diesel gave a short snort, not a laugh, more like "you're not as smart as you think." Daniel shut his mouth. He stared at the phone like it was a snake. "Those 2 women," Cole went on, "are at home right now in 2 different states. They're grown. They've tried to heal from what you did after you left, but the cuts you left don't disappear on their own. They've carried them for years. They're part of this network, Daniel. They know your name. They know you moved to Arizona. They know you're repeating the pattern with another little girl. And they agreed on one thing. If they ever got the chance to look you in the eye again, they'd say everything. And if you have the guts to listen, to own it, to change, they'll give you one single shot to be different." Daniel was shaking hard. "A shot?" he echoed, like he couldn't believe his ears. "You think I need your shot?" Cole didn't get angry. He just looked straight, gray, high plateau eyes, where blizzards and scorching sun live side by side. "No," he said. "I think they need the shot. The shot to speak without being told they're too sensitive. The shot for the man who terrified them to have to listen without running. And Maya," he turned his head, voice softening when he said her name, "needs the shot to know her fear wasn't meaningless, wasn't ignored, like my mother's was, like my little sister's was." Daniel dropped his gaze, shoulders trembling. For the first time all night he didn't look like a cunning predator. He looked like a man stripped to the bone, nowhere left to hide his cowardice and his own fear. Tears welled up. He blinked hard to stop them, but one escaped and rolled down onto his clenched fist. I just, he whispered, voice breaking. "I just wanted someone to see me, notice me, not leave me." "You wanted to be seen?" Cole asked. No mockery, no scorn. "So you turned yourself into a ghost following other people. You turned your loneliness into a weapon and aimed it at people smaller than you. That's how you get seen." Daniel squeezed his eyes shut. Tears were running freely now, down both sides of his nose. He nodded like a drunk who had no sane answer left. Hawk slowly pulled an old plain card from his wallet. No logo, no name, just a phone number and 4 small words. "We listen." He set it on the edge of the table like a verdict. "Choice 2, Cole said again. "You video call them here, now." Hawk already reached out. "They're waiting. You tell the truth, all of it. No excuses. No, she smiled at me. No, she sent signals. None of that bullshit. You say, here's what I did. Here's how I ruined your life. You apologize. For real. Then you accept the terms. We've got a therapist in Flagstaff who works with obsessive, manipulative predators. You'll go weekly. You'll check in with the silent circle after every session. You'll be watched, not the way you watch others, but the way a patient is watched, so he stops hurting people." Daniel's head snapped up. "So you can keep the video and own me for life?" he asked, voice cracking with fear, anger, shame. Cole shrugged. "Call it insurance. You finish the program. You live 2 years without stalking anyone, without parking at any girl's bus stop. The video gets deleted. Not because you deserve it, because we believe people can stop being monsters if they're forced to look in the mirror long enough. You break the deal. You repeat the pattern. That video goes to every police department you ever lived near, goes online, goes to future landlords, future employers, anyone who needs to know so they don't become the next victim. Simple." Diesel tapped the table slowly with one finger, tick-tick, like a countdown. Bullet stayed silent, but that silence built the wall behind Daniel thicker, pushing him closer to the edge. "No third choice?" Daniel asked weakly, like a kid still hoping the grown-up will go easy. Cole shook his head. "None. Either you vanish from Flagstaff tonight, spend the rest of your life as a ghost with our eyes on you everywhere you go, or you stay, face those 2 women, own it, apologize, heal. Both roads are hard, Daniel, both hurt, but only one gives you a shot at becoming something other than the thing sitting in front of me right now." That was the final hammer blow. Daniel, the man who used to sit for hours in the dark, just to watch a little girl clear tables, now sat hunched between four bikers, tears streaking his face, chest heaving, breath ragged. He stared at the phone, then at the door, then at Maya, the girl who was still trembling but standing her ground, not hiding, not running. Her eyes, though scared, held something else now. Hope. Hope that tonight the fear would end not in blood, but in truth. Daniel started, voice barely audible. I don't want to keep being like this, but I'm scared. Scared to hear them. Scared to see what I did come back. Good, Cole said instantly. That kind of scared is right. That's the best thing you've done in years. Because this fear isn't on somebody else's shoulders anymore. It's on yours. He slid the phone closer to Daniel. Choose, he said. Disappear from Flagstaff like another ghost, or stay here and become a man who finally owns his own shadow for the first time in his life. Daniel stared at the phone, hands still shaking, but this time he didn't push his chair back. Hawk, Diesel and Bullet didn't rush him, didn't count down, didn't threaten. The air in Twin Arrows Diner stayed thick as high mountain fog, only now it carried the metallic smell of tension and the trembling scent of truth about to be dragged into the light. Cole didn't blink. Daniel breathed in ragged bursts, hands clenched so tight the knuckles were white. The other bikers, Rook, Lancer, Hawk, sat close on both sides, unmoving, silent, their presence like stone walls blocking every escape. Cole tilted his head slightly, voice low as contained thunder. All right, Daniel, start. He picked up the phone, hands shaking so badly he nearly dropped it, fingers fumbling the number Cole gave him. Maya watched from the counter. Small body half hidden behind the register, nails digging into the wood so deep they left marks. She had never seen anything like this, an adult shaking like a trapped animal, but she didn't feel happy. She only felt the fear she'd carried for weeks, opening up in front of her, showing her she wasn't crazy, wasn't imagining her nightmare was real. The phone rang once, then a woman's face appeared. Warm light behind her made the dark circles under her strong eyes stand out. Daniel. Her voice was low, sharp, but held no hate, only the voice of someone too tired to keep being afraid. He wanted to hang up instantly, but Cole placed one big hand on the back of the chair. Just a light touch was enough to freeze Daniel solid. Jessica, Daniel whispered, voice lost, the face on the screen tilted, eyes studying him, sharp as a blade yet carrying deep hurt. I'm here, good that you still remember me. So why are you calling? Daniel looked at Cole. Cole gave the tiniest nod. He turned back to the screen, lips trembling. I'm sorry. Jessica said nothing. Her silence panicked him more. Sorry for everything I did. Still no answer. The air froze, only the wind whistling through the door cracks. Say it clear. Cole prompted quietly, voice anchoring Daniel to reality. Daniel swallowed hard, eyes red. I stalked you. I made you afraid. I did things I shouldn't have. I don't know what I was thinking. Jessica finally spoke, soft but cutting. You know. Don't pretend you don't. Daniel dropped his gaze. Tears hit the table. Maya covered her mouth, chest tightening. Another beep. Cole had started recording. Daniel knew, but didn't dare object. Cole didn't force him to spell out the details that would re-traumatize anyone. He only forced him to face that he had caused terror, crossed lines, made others live in constant dread. Jessica was quiet, a long time, weighing every word. Finally she said, I used to think I was weak, but I wasn't. I was just cornered by someone like you, and I'm not letting that happen again. I agreed to this call because I don't want any little girl to feel what I felt. Daniel cried harder. The screen split. Another woman appeared. Short hair, hard face, eyes full of life, but scarred by months of harassment. Daniel, she said, voice steady but colder than Jessica's. Daniel looked at her like he'd seen a ghost. Emily. Yeah, it's me, and I want to hear you say it. Do you understand how far you pushed me? Daniel sobbed out the answer. I know I was wrong. I ruined people's lives. I don't deserve forgiveness. Right, Emily said flatly. But forgiveness isn't what I want. I want you to take responsibility. Daniel sucked in air, hands over his head. I take responsibility. I'm sorry. I'll go to therapy. I'll leave Flagstaff. I'll never. Cole lightly squeezed Daniel's shoulder. Not to me, Cole said.
To them.
Daniel looked at the two faces on the screen. Two faces that had vanished from his life years ago but still carried the fear he'd planted in their hearts. The wind outside howled against the windows like the desert sighing. "I'm sorry," Daniel repeated, clearer this time, less shaking, more real. "I hurt you. I made you live in panic. I was wrong. I'll do whatever it takes to fix it." Jessica glanced at Cole on the screen, as if asking whether that was enough. Cole gave a small, calm nod. Then Jessica let out a long breath, like lifting a rock off her chest after years. "I'm not trusting you yet," she said, "but I do trust that you need to fix yourself. And I want you to do it not for us. For little girls like Maya." Maya startled at her name. She didn't speak, but her eyes filled with tears. Emily stared at Daniel. "This is your last chance. If you break your word, if you do it again, this video goes out, and I'll be the first to send it." Daniel nodded frantically, tears streaming. I understand. I'll do it right." Cole gently set his hand on the phone. "Enough." He ended the call. Silence returned to the diner, but it wasn't the terrifying kind anymore. It was the silence after a huge storm. Only the smell of wet earth and the cold breath of truth left exposed. Daniel dropped his head to the table, shoulders heaving like every ounce of strength had been drained out of him. Cole pocketed the phone, stepped aside, and placed one hand on the table like a pillar, holding the whole room steady again. "Daniel," Cole said, voice so low it was almost a whisper, "tonight you get out of Flagstaff. Therapy starts tomorrow. Someone will check on you in a week." Daniel nodded weakly. Hawk pulled the chair back for him to stand. Lancer opened the door. Rook walked behind. Daniel stumbled out like the wind was pushing him. Not a shred of pride or fight left on him. The diner doorbell jingled cold. Maya stood frozen, not knowing what to do, until Cole turned back to her. His eyes no longer sharp and cold, but deep, gentle, carrying the sorrow of someone who had seen too much darkness. Maya trembled, voice breaking. "Uncle Cole, is it really over?" Cole crouched down to look her straight in the eye, neon reflecting in his kind brown eyes. "You're safe now," Cole said, soft but solid as an oath. "And tonight, you faced your fear. I'm proud of you." For the first time in 3 weeks, Maya cried out loud, not from fear, but because for the first time someone truly believed her. Cole stood there a long while after Maya stopped crying, letting her catch her breath in the kind of safe silence she hadn't dared dream of for weeks. Outside the windows, Rooks, Lancers, and Hawks' 3 Harleys flicked their headlights on at the same moment, 3 white spears ripping through the route, 66 darkness, and the high plateau cold. The engines fired up together, not loud, not showing off, just a low reminder to the whole world out there that tonight some big men had woken up to guard one little kid. Cole shrugged his cut back on, straightened the collar, then turned to Maya, voice warm and low, nothing like the steel he'd used on Daniel. "Let's go home, kid. It's late." Maya nodded, tiny and careful, like one sudden move might shatter this fragile safety. She stepped out of Twin Arrows Diner. The knife-sharp cold hit her face, but for the first time in nights she didn't shrink. Right in front of her, 3 huge figures sat on glowing Harleys, forming a wall of steel between her and anything else out there. Cole opened the passenger door of his truck for her, not touching her, just close enough that she felt shielded. "You walk in the middle," he said. "We ride 2 beside you, 1 behind. Nothing's getting close." He gave a short whistle. The 3 bikers moved instantly. Lancer left, Rook right, Hawk locked the rear. Cole swung onto his bike, thumbed the starter. The low growl sounded like the steady heartbeat of a man who'd faced violence his whole life. "Let's roll." Maya walked between them, small boots stepping sure on the cold concrete, nothing like the wobbling steps of the old nights. When the 4 of them, 1 little girl and 3 bikers, left the lot, the headlights swept long silver ribbons across empty Route 66. Mountain wind slammed hard, trees bent double, dust devils spun white in the beams, but the Harleys rolled slow and rock steady, old beasts that knew every trick of a Flagstaff night. Maya walked in a hallway of light, 2 headlamps on her sides, 1 behind. For the first time in weeks, she didn't keep twisting around, didn't clutch her sleeves until her palms sweated, didn't feel eyes crawling up her back. Cole rode point, glancing back now and then, calm as if escorting a child through a freezing night was something he'd done 100 times. The wind got fiercer, the Harley rumble mixed with it until it sounded like heavy surf crashing against cliffs. To Maya it wasn't scary anymore. It was the sound of guardians walking beside her. The trailer park wasn't far, but tonight the distance stretched by relief, by the sudden lightness in her chest after weeks of being crushed. When they reached the little rise to her place, Cole raised a hand. All three bikes cranked their lights to high, sweeping the whole front yard. No gray sedan, no lurking shadow, just wind, light, and the steady idle of engines, breathing like silent sentries. Cole killed his motor, kicked the stand down, walked over. "Go on in," he said. "We'll wait till the door's locked." Maya paused a second, then looked up at Cole. For the first time her eyes held no fear, only something close to trust. "Uncle Cole," she whispered. "Thank you." Cole gave the smallest nod, a smile flickering like fire under ash. "No need. You're safe. That's all." Maya ran inside. Warm yellow light spilled out in a soft triangle. The deadbolt clicked, a tiny sound, but tonight louder than any engine. Cole waited a few more seconds, making sure, then pulled his helmet on. The other three fired up in perfect sync. 4 Harleys turned, lit the night, then rolled back into the route. 66 dark like big animals returning to the desert, leaving behind one little girl who could finally sleep without jolting awake. And in that moment Maya understood not every man in leather and on a Harley is scary. Some, like Cole and the bikers tonight, were born to stand between evil and kids like her. 8 months had passed since the night 3 Harleys escorted Maya through the freezing Route 66 wind, and Flagstaff had changed color in a way only people who've walked through darkness can feel. Early summer sun fell gentle on Twin Arrows Diner this morning, nothing like the heavy nights when Maya used to tremble holding the coffee pot. She no longer worked nights. Cole and the Silent Circle decided that, and Tom the manager agreed in under a minute, after seeing 3 bikers standing motionless outside like gatekeepers from another world. Maya now only pulled weekend morning shifts. Evenings were for homework and helping Mom get better. Mom was doing a lot better. She could walk around the trailer, cook simple meals, even laugh a little watching Maya run around organizing books. Her illness wasn't the giant shadow it used to be. Some mornings Maya woke to Mom's cough, and the world didn't feel like it was collapsing, because they weren't alone anymore. Outside, Harleys sometimes rolled past the trailer park, by chance, but Maya knew nothing was chance. Cole occasionally left a grocery bag hanging on the door. No knock, no note, just there. Hawk fixed the loose doorknob. Lancer brought Mom herbal medicine from the Navajo Nation, and Rook just stood at a distance, nodded when Maya walked to school. Daniel never showed up in Flagstaff again. Cole said he left that night, but Maya figured adults tell kids softer versions. Only when a letter arrived for Cole, and Cole let her read it, did she learn the truth. Daniel really was in mandatory therapy in Albuquerque, monitored every week, not allowed to leave New Mexico for 2 years, and the confession video sat locked in a Silent Circle folder, key turned only if needed. Maya's hands shook a little reading it, but a stone lifted off her heart. For the first time the past felt like a scar, not a life sentence. Twin Arrows Diner had changed too, in a way no one who'd been there that night could forget. Right beside the open sign on the window hung a new hand-carved wooden plaque, letters burned deep and black, protected by the Silent Circle. Nobody asked Tom why he put it up. He just grinned and said, "Business picked up since that sign went in. Take it down and I'll lose half my regulars." Everyone knew he hung it because he still felt bad for not believing Maya when Daniel sat in the corner. Every weekend morning Maya still came in, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She poured coffee, wiped tables, listened to cups clink and customers laugh. Sounds that fear used to twist now sounded exactly like what they were. Peace. Maya had grown, not much taller, but her eyes were older. The 12-year-old who used to hunch in corners now stood straighter, walked steadier, even bold enough to ask new customers. "Coffee black or extra cream, sir?" Cole still came some early mornings, sat in booth 6, quietly ate his patty melt. Maya brought coffee. He'd say, "Thanks, kid," then slide her a tiny silver shield patch the size of a shirt button. "Keep it. Don't have to wear it. Just know it's yours." She kept it in her pencil box, never showed anyone, but looked at it every day. On windy nights she no longer heard a gray sedan prowling, only distant Harleys, low solid like the desert's quiet promise that if she ever needed them they'd come. And Maya understood, even when life feels peaceful again, some things never disappear. The plain kindness of men in leather, and the small, stubborn courage she'd found inside herself. When Maya had settled into this quieter new life, when Cole only dropped by the diner for morning coffee and a nod like any passing traveler, instead of the man who once stood between her and a predator, everything seemed to sink into calm. But the desert doesn't forget. Route 66 doesn't forget. What Daniel did, what Cole stopped, what Maya endured, it didn't vanish, it just waited for the right gust to whirl it up again. That gust came on an ordinary evening when a young trucker from Nevada stopped at Twin Arrows, sat in the very booth where Cole had faced Daniel, scrolled TikTok while waiting for his food, then suddenly asked Tom, "Hey boss, that big biker who always sits here, was he in some viral video?" Tom frowned. "What video?" The trucker held up his phone, rewound a 2.5-minute clip shot on a shaky phone camera by someone scared but determined to hold steady. The screen showed the diner 8 months ago, neon on chrome tables, Cole Maddox across from Daniel Kerrigan, in booth 3, huge frame blocking the aisle, eyes cold as hot steel, Daniel shaking like a live wire about to snap. Behind them, 3 silent bikers closing the circle, no shouting, no touching, just presence heavy as a steel ball on the table. The first line audible, 2 choices, Daniel. Caption, "I've never seen bikers protect a little girl like this. Respect." Tom went still, then called Maya from the kitchen. When she saw it, her heart lurched back into the old memory. But what stunned her wasn't the footage, she'd lived it. It was the tiny number in the corner, 20.3 views. 20 million. 20 million people had seen the moment Cole stepped in front of a fear Maya thought she'd carry forever, and it kept climbing. 20.4 m, 20.7 m, 21.1 m, faster than desert wind. 9 p.m. 25 million. Next morning, 36 million. 1 week later, over 70 million. Biker accounts, parents, small-town folks, veterans, child protection groups. Everyone shared it. Tags exploded. The one the media gave Cole stuck hardest, #66 Angel. Maya cried reading it. Not from shame, but because for the first time the world didn't see her as a victim. They saw her as the reason hundreds of good people stood up. Within 2 days, real news trucks rolled into Flagstaff, not tabloids, but USA Today, the Arizona Republic, Fox 10 Phoenix, CNN Local. They weren't looking for Daniel. He was locked in therapy. They wanted Cole. Cole refused interviews. "I don't need TV. I just need the kids safe." But the silent circle couldn't stay hidden anymore. They never liked spotlights, never liked noise, but that video dragged them out of the shadows of quiet rides. One article said, "In a world full of bystanders, some bikers choose to stand in the way." It spread like fire. Then biker clubs from Montana, Texas, Kansas, Oregon started emailing, handwriting letters, mailing patches, thank you notes to the diner. One wrote, "I was the kid being followed once. Thank you for not letting it happen again." A club in Missouri sent a 3-page letter telling how they'd lost a young member to a stalker no one believed. They ended, "If the silent circle ever needs more bodies, we ride." In 8 weeks, Cole's original 8 grew to 60. Not to fight wars, not to show off, just to be shields for other kids in other cold towns. Then Portland called. New Mexico, Utah, Colorado. They didn't ask to join. They just said, "If someone needs a wall in front of their door so they can sleep, we're there." Cole sat in booth 6 staring at the flood of letters, eyes calm but carrying something like relief. "We never wanted to be an organization," he told Hawk. Hawk nodded. "Sometimes what you want turns into something bigger anyway." A week later, for the first time, the silent circle spread to 9 more states. No ceremony, no flags, no press release, just a phone list and simple promises. "If someone needs us, call. Brothers will come." Maya walked past the counter one day and saw Tom hang a second sign beside "Protected by the Silent Circle." "If you're alone, you're not really alone." A stranger from Texas told her. "I drove 300 miles just to take a picture of that sign." Route 66 never had a story this good. And every time Maya opened TikTok and saw Cole's video still climbing, now hundreds of millions of views, she didn't tremble anymore. She just felt warm. Because the whole world knew that out there in the desert were men in leather, arms covered in ink, faces hard as rock, but hearts beating to a different rhythm, the rhythm of people who choose to protect the smaller ones. And Maya knew Cole had been right. You're safe now. Not just safe because Daniel was gone. Safe because that one night had grown bigger than a diner, bigger than Flagstaff. It had become something people shared to remind each other that quiet kindness, when it's time, roars louder than any Harley. And that night on Route 66, the night Cole stood up, the night Hawk, Rook and Lancer walked in, now belonged to America. It was no longer just Maya's story. It had become a quiet legend of the kind of people nobody expects to be heroes, who stand up anyway when the darkness comes. One kid saved, one biker club that woke a nation, one video that thawed hearts long grown cynical. And from then on, America knew the silent circle, men who never looked for the spotlight, but showed up the moment the dark opened its eyes. 1 year after the video shook the country, when the silent circle was in 17 states, and Twin Arrows Diner had become a stop for every kind of dusty boot and worn jacket, Maya stood at the edge of Walnut Canyon on a late summer afternoon. Sun poured gold like honey over the rough red rock walls. Wind carried young pine and warm earth, and the sound of a Harley rose from the end of the dirt road. A familiar shadow appeared through the red dust. Cole Maddox on his matte black Harley, tall as the mountains behind him, cut flapping in the wind, Mesa chapter patch flashing in the lowering sun. He stopped where Maya waited, kicked the stand down, pushed his glasses up, gray eyes holding the tired kindness of a man who's ridden more than he's ever talked. "Kid," he greeted, voice low like rocks rolling down the canyon. Maya smiled. No tremble left, just gratitude wide as the western sky. "Uncle Cole." She held out something wrapped in a handkerchief. Cole raised a brow, took it, opened it. A small metal keychain, a winged angel, tiny and bright as dew but heavy like it carried every thank you Maya had saved for a year. "You make this?" Cole asked, softer than she'd ever heard him. "Yes," Maya said. "I want you to keep it, so you remember there's somebody in Flagstaff who knows what you did for me." Cole stared at the little angel a long time. Late sun lit the old roads on his face but lit his eyes in a new way. He didn't say thank you, just the smallest nod, the kind bikers give when words aren't big enough. Then he crouched and clipped the angel to his Harley keys. "Ride a stretch with me?" he asked. Maya shook her head, black hair dancing in the wind. "Today I just wanted to say hi. And I think you're headed far away." Cole gave a short, gravelly laugh. "Yeah, far, kid. Somebody in Montana needs us. Another little girl like you used to be." Maya didn't feel sad. She felt peace, because she knew that was Cole's road. And it wasn't a road of fear anymore. It was a road of kindness passed along like fire through winter pines. Cole pulled his helmet on, turned silver at his temples caught the sun. Maya suddenly called out, voice ringing clear in the wind. "Uncle Cole." He looked back. She swallowed once, then said, steady as spring water, "Thank you for standing on my side." Cole looked at her a long time. 1 year ago those eyes were steel. Today they were wide sky. "Not just me, kid," he said. "That night, you stood on your own side too." Then he thumbed the starter. The Harley roared, deep, thick, strong as the mountain breathing, and the sound rolled through Walnut Canyon, bounced off ancient walls and carved grooves like the call of free men who won't let darkness swallow the weak. Cole raised a hand one last time, turned the bike, and the Harley tore down the dirt road, red dust rising behind like a silk banner. Maya watched until he was only a dot against the burning Arizona sky. Wind blew. Pine scent rushed in, and in that moment Maya knew for sure, in a world full of broken things, there are still people in leather with hot hearts who don't need glory or gratitude. They just need to know that when the darkness comes, they'll always be the first ones to step forward. And on the rim of Walnut Canyon that evening, Maya understood that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they ride Harleys and leave the echo of engines all the way to the horizon. Before you go, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a story that touches the heart, and drop a comment to let me know where you're watching from.